All right. No countdown today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in live. I appreciate all you guys being here. If you're just tuning in live, let me know where you're watching this from. Hey, drop your location in the chat. Let me know where you're watching this at. Forgive me for the late start. We had a guest in town. You guys will see that interview on Patreon sooner than later. Pretty good interview, if I may add. And I'm still kind of under the weather. I'm traveling tomorrow. So anyway, excuse my tardiness, ladies and gentlemen. But we're here. We're live. We've got a couple things to get into. We'll jump right into the first one. I made it into a James White Apologia Studios video. Okay. And there's a debate I watched that I wanted to show you guys. It's an older debate. And this is kind of the means of the stream today of how ridiculous the straw manning of Christianity can be by some folks in a skeptic community. And there's a wide spectrum of skeptics. There's some that are non-resistant. There's some that are very abrasive, and there's others that are very friendly and charitable. We just had one who's very friendly and charitable. So we're going to be reacting to the ridiculousness of what I would call a straw manning of Christianity here in a second. If you're tuning in live, let me know where you're watching this from. Drop your location in the chat. Smash that like button. Let me make sure we got the poll. Yep, we got the poll going. How's Zach and the new baby? They're doing good. I saw him at church yesterday. The new baby, Boone. He is adorable. I was shocked. To see him at church with a 10-day-old. Yeah, 10-day-old. That was amazing. So shout out to Zach Sbrazo if he's watching this. Okay, let's see. What should we get into first? I don't got a lot today, but I do have the James White. And, we got an announcement. This is interesting. Maybe I'll save that for the clip tomorrow. We'll see. I saw the clip you're in with Jeff Derbin. Yes. So should we look at that clip first, or should we look at, there's also the other one. Oh gosh, I don't know if I'll be able to get to that. Let me see if I can find that video real quick. There's the clip of Dr. Sean McDowell and the Great Isaiah Scroll debacle. There's a lot of Great Isaiah Scroll, which, by the way, it's pretty cool that we're all talking about this, and it's very interesting that this is being discussed, you know?
Which makes...
Let me see. So maybe we'll look at that as well. Rochester, New York. What up, Ruslan? Growing the beard out more. Yeah, just a little thicker. I'm a little patchy in the beard, so I'm trying to grow it out a little more. Thank you for noticing, Tyrone. Appreciate you. Reporting from Northern Virginia. Appreciate you. Loved your talk at Liberty. Thank you for watching, Blaine. Yeah, we're going to be chopping that up. That was super fun. I'm excited to be speaking more. Liberty was kind of nerve-wracking. Okay. Should we look at the James White clip, or should we get into this straw manning that needs to be addressed and was addressed wonderfully? Which one do you guys want to get into? Like kind of the meat and potatoes, or do we want to do a little appetizer? What are you guys in the mood for? Should we do the appetizer? I think we should do the appetizer. Do you guys need to always wear your name in videos? We need to address this with a thumbnail making me think there's drama, therefore I need to watch. It's just the easiest way for us to plan a stream without a leading topic. So it's not that we need to do anything. It's just a generic thumbnail that we use. Ruslan, why did you leave the Armenian Apostolic Church? Because I did not hear the gospel there. And I came to a saving faith in Jesus in a stream that emphasized more scripture and more of the gospel and was more transcendent to me. That'd be the simple answer. Shout out to Pure Plays in the house. All right, let's jump into this. So we made it in. Stop the recording. Made it into a video reaction by Dr. James White reacting to my clip with Alex O'Connor. They reacted to a lot of Alex O'Connor's stuff here. It's called Refuting Alex O'Connor with James White. It's on the Apologia Studios YouTube channel. Okay, so if you guys aren't familiar, Apologia Studios, Dr. James White. Dr. James White, I think, has a really good debate with Dr. Bart Ehrman that if you guys haven't seen, you should go check it out. And he kind of makes some of the same points here with responding to my conversation with Alex O'Connor. And I thought this was fun. I was like, man, this is so cool to react to one of my clips. I don't think this is the first time to react to one of my clips, but I was flattered. I was flattered. Dr. James White's kind of a big deal. And I think whenever someone who is debated as much and as well-versed as he is, noticing something you're doing, not that he picked the video out himself, I was flattered. So let's check this out.
A portion that lead in, we've already sort of laid down the important issues, but we want everyone to hear how the challenge comes. This is Alex O'Connor with Ruslan. Here we go.
The reason I want to speak to you today was because Wes Huff obviously made the video and I responded. Gavin Ortland responded to that. And he made a comment saying that he, at least for now, isn't going to respond to that. The only other sort of big player in the game here with
big player in the game here, according to Alex O'Connor. Appreciate you, Mr. Alex.
Regular viewers making regular content about this is you, or are you too, I suppose.
It's Ruslan.
Look, I can't see Wes Huff sort of hopping on a conversation anytime soon. So let's do it this way, perhaps. I wondered what you make of where we're up to. Because as far as I can tell, what's happened is Wes Huff made a claim about the Isaiah scroll on Joe Rogan, which is not correct. He admitted that he was not correct, that he misspoke. But it's still trying to salvage the point and indicate that Joe Rogan should still be amazed and would still be amazed if he heard the same thing. Now, I don't know if you've seen this, but just...
So the funny part about this conversation is... if you guys go back and watch it, which it's pretty funny, is when Wes Huff lets me know in real time that Rogan knows the updated statistics on this whole debacle and didn't care. And then I saw proof of that. Alex's face here is amazing. So this is going back to the whole, was the Isaiah scroll word for word, not word for word. Dr. James White got a whole lot to say, so let's check this out.
Is verbatim the same as the one they've got today. It literally.
So he's mad that Rogan is now repeating the claim that Wes Huff made.
Word for word. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. Now, I understand that people think that a sort of 93.5% at best fidelity.
Now, we would kind of debunk that already, and maybe we will again.
With the massive text is still like really impressive. Sure. Yes, I mean, that's the calculation that Dan McClellan came to by assuming that every single textual variant only applied to one word, when actually they apply to sometimes entire sentences and verses. If you just ran down to one per word, then you get I think it's 93% fidelity. So it's got to be lower than that, but it's at best, 93%. People say that's still kind of amazing, but I don't think Joe Rogan would be having this other guest on going like, dude, I literally can't stop thinking.
Now, the reason I'm smiling there, and some of you guys are like, why are you smiling? Because I knew this wasn't going to age well, and it didn't age well.
About the fact that like the Isaiah scroll is like 93%. I just don't think it would have the same apologetic weight for him. So this is obviously doing something for him and his listeners.
So, okay, so let's engage a bit with that.
Well, here's the issue, and I mentioned this before. I think what Wes was doing is he was speaking as a textual critic, and the idea of it being that high of a percentage of agreement is what we're talking about when you look at those two texts. We're not using the modern photocopy, computer-generated. Let me just put it this way. I don't think any scribe from Qumran or 1,000 years later would have disputed what Wes said, because they would have said, man, they did a really good job. This is incredibly, well done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so that's an interesting claim here.
Scribe from Qumran, computer generated. Let me just put it this way. I don't think any scribe from Qumran or 1,000 years later would have disputed what Wes said, because they would have said, man, they did a really good job. This is incredibly, well done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So he's saying he doesn't think any scribe would have disagreed with Wes Huff saying it was word for word the same. Interesting.
So I think that's what he was going for. And I think what you've got here is it seems that what the young fellow is saying is that the presentation was, well, look, this is a miracle of transmission. I don't think that's what Wes was going for. I think what Wes was trying to say is we have this evidence before Christ of a text that has not been corrupted. It has not been changed. It wasn't edited by the church that witnesses to the coming of the Messiah.
Edited by the church. That's kind of the Dan Brown novel, Church is tampered with the scriptures. Jesus was written in as the God Almighty at the Council of Nicaea. I think that's kind of what he's hinting at here.
And that has gone through 1,000 years of transmission without any substantive change. And I'm sure that's how he will say it for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
he'll never use that terminology. But again, that wasn't what it. If you're putting weight upon what someone isn't talking about, that's the problem. I would like to hear an atheist respond to the prophetic witness of the coming of Christ that is in the Qumran scroll that was written before Christ fulfilled the prophecies.
Yeah.
That's why we call Isaiah the fifth gospel, the suffering servant passages. all the prophetic passages about Jesus coming as the Messiah. Whoo, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there that to the point where, you know, I've had this conversation with some of my Jewish friends, and they're very uncomfortable with the Isaiah book, and have even kind of alluded that like Christian scribes have corrupted it, right? When that's the version that we have from the Middle Ages was the version that they could, I guess, kind of say that too, right? Because it was, who knows who had access to it. But now the version that's discovered at Dead Sea Scrolls is 1,000 years from before. Yet all of the prophetic passages are there. That's a big deal.
Okay, there's what the issue is. He wasn't trying to say, hey, Joe, you should believe in this because of the perfection of the transmission of the text is like a photocopier. Because he knows that it's not a photocopier. I just happened, while that was playing, I was just scrolling through the differences in the resource I told you before, and I just stopped, and it was in Isaiah 22:24. There is a singular difference where the consonants are the same, but there has been an article put before the front, and that's it. It doesn't change anything. That's an entire variant that lowers the percentage, blah blah blah, but it doesn't change anything. And that's really the issue I think that we need to be focusing on.
And by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, you can look up the Isaiah scroll translated in English from the Masoretic text to the Great Isaiah Scroll. You could actually look it up and read them and compare them for yourself. Like, it's available on the website. I'll try to link it below in this video.
And look, we need to be accurate when we're talking about the Isaiah scroll. Like I said, you got to be careful of the Bart Ehrmans out there. They'll come back with you on Jeremiah and the Septuagint and stuff like that. You need to be aware of stuff like that. But the reality is the Isaiah scroll demonstrates that there is no necessary corruption that takes place in the transmission of the text. Necessary. There can be. The Gnostics came along and tried to change everything, and they'd be editing stuff out of the Old Testament and changing words right, left, and center. So I'm not saying you don't have corruption, because there have been people who've tried to corrupt things. So the New World Translation, Jehovah's Witnesses, modern example of how to twist the scriptures. But there is no necessary reason for skepticism just because a text is very old. And I would point out that recently there was another scroll that was found that had been burned. It was damaged in a fire. And you couldn't unroll it because of the fact that it had been basically fried. And they used computer tomography to x-ray it and unroll it. And they found out that it was an ancient text of Leviticus. The first, I think, 8 verses. That, again, is almost identical to the Masoretic as well. So the point is that the Masoretes used a really good Hebrew text, and they preserved it for us. And so what we've had all along has been perfectly good. And with Qumran, we can now even shed more light upon that. And the whole point is, here's prophecy. Explain how someone living 700 years before Christ could prophesy of these things taking place. Now, I know how the liberals do that, but I'm simply talking about stuff where you actually have evidence that you can look at.
That's right.
Yeah, well said by Dr. James White. Now, someone else put together these numbers. Let's look at this. Okay, so this is fascinating. I'm going to click out of this. Shout out to James White. Shout out to everybody for the Apologia Center for using that. Hopefully that is edifying. They didn't play much of me saying anything because we kind of got into this, but I do want to play this part. Let me pull this up here. If you're just tuning in live, let me know where you're watching this from. I would love to hear from you guys. Where is this at? Give me this sec. Where is this timestamp? Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is have you seen the plane crashes? Man, I'm going to get to that in a second. Let me just flesh this out real quick. Okay, so this is Anthony Ferguson. He is a PhD, and Dr. Sean McDowell interviewed him, and they talk about this great Isaiah scroll thing. So check this part out. This is very, very interesting, okay?
Almost word for word with the empty text. But the problem with his argument is that they occur on regular, quote-unquote, intervals, and also the scribe, in some instances, left blank lines that were then later filled in to align almost word for word with the empty text. So I think Drew's argument is a much better argument. And what it does is it helps us understand that what's happening in the copying of an ancient text is highly complex.
Hold on real quick. Let me find this timestamp, guys. We're going to get there. If you're just tuning in live, be patient, please. Here we go. Okay. Sorry if this is like really, really nerdy for you guys. I found the timestamp. Check this out.
As a later spelling practice, it uses the consonant vav to indicate the MT does not do. So if in your statistics you're going to include letter for letter spelling.
So this goes back to the statistics on word for word. Check this out.
Practice or phonological differences. 1Q Isaiah also loves to do this double consonant called a vav aleph, and it's very, very strange. Or yod aleph. So there's this conjunction called ki in Hebrew, and ki can mean things like for or when and because, and it's spelled kaf yod. But in 1Q Isaiah, it's often spelled with an aleph at the end. I mean, it just has a different spelling practice, Sean. So if in your statistics you're going to include all of that, then obviously the statistics are going to be much, much lower. Also, Sean, this might seem very technical, but what counts as a word? That's a very, very important point we need to make. So if your common denominator in your statistics is the total words in 1Q Isaiah A, well, how are you counting a word? So melech, for example, is the Hebrew word for king. But if you add a pronominal suffix like malko or malki would be my king, malko would be his king. Is malko one word or two words, right? So if malko in your statistics is just one word, well, then your common denominator, like your total words in 1Q Isaiah A, is going to be much, much less. And therefore, the amount of variance is going to be much, much less. So I think we're seeing different statistics thrown out there because we're counting the words and the variance differently in 1Q Isaiah A. Also, some people give statistics that aren't exhaustive, and that should be understood. Even in my dissertation, it wasn't an exhaustive analysis of every single difference in 1Q Isaiah A, and we can get back to that in a moment if you'd like. But some scholars, they do like the differences in one column or in a group of columns. And then what they do is they say, well, this is the statistics for this group of columns. And then, in the bigger argument, it gets lost that this wasn't an exhaustive analysis of everything on the text. So I think these reasons are going to yield slightly different statistics. In my dissertation, I think I wrote it down somewhere. I analyzed 25,374 words. And what I did was I used malko as two words. So you have melech as one word and you have the pronominal suffix as another word. Some people might debate that. They might not quite want to do it that way, but that's what I did. So I analyzed 25,374 words. And when I only counted variants that don't result in a synonymous reading. So like if the reading between MT and 1Q Isaiah A is a synonymous reading, I didn't count it as a variant. So all of the readings that yield a different meaning, whether or not that meaning was very significant or not very significant, the text aligned 96.44%. There were 903 differences that yielded a difference in meaning. So it yielded a 96.44% alignment between MT and 1Q Isaiah A.
That's pretty impressive. Now listen to what he says next.
But then I had this other set of statistics where if I eliminated all those differences that result from the scribal process, so a scribal error, for example, a letter sounded the same, it looked the same, a scribe's eye skipped from one line to the other line, or he interpreted the text, he was updating the text to fit its contemporary usage, things like that. If I eliminated all of those differences and I was only left with these differences, like, hey, I don't know how these got here. Like there isn't any apparent reason. I yielded 31 differences, which led to a 99.88% alignment between MT and 1Q Isaiah A. So I just
99.88% identical. Shout out to Sean McDowell and Anthony Ferguson. Pretty fantastic. So again, this stuff's, if I'm honest with you, pretty over my head. But But it's interesting that people are counting these things and figuring out different ways on how to come to these conclusions. So I'm gonna let the scholars and these folks figure these out. You know what I mean? And try and navigate these conversations. Okay. Let's get into this other topic. If you're just tuning in live, let me know where you guys are watching this from. It sounds like there's been a lot of plane crashes. I'm not sure what to make of it. DC plane crash, Philadelphia plane crash. Is there another plane crash? Is there another plane crash? I've seen two. I've seen two back-to-back, 55 victims positively identified in a DC plane crash. And I want to say they increased the numbers of the people who have been hurt by the Philadelphia plane crash. A plane burst into flames on the runway in Houston. This is news to me. Houston. Oh yeah, I saw this. This is they had to evacuate everybody off of this thing, right? This is pretty scary, and so yeah, I saw that. Yeah, folks were freaking out, and this is like not, this is not like fun stuff for someone like myself who has to travel. This is pretty horrifying stuff that like people had to be on the tarmac and get evacuated from this airplane. And, you know, plane crashes, are these signs of the times? Are these the groanings of Jesus coming back? I don't know. The political angle, is this DEI and bad hires? Man, me, Kevin did a really good video on that with regards to looking at a lawsuit connected to a group that gets people hired in the FAA that prioritizes everybody but white males. And that was crazy in terms of like pulling the actual receipts and how certain people were prioritized. And there was intentional words that could be triggered in a resume, right? Then there is the flip side of, man, some key people have been fired since Trump took over. Is this hey, we're going to increase the output of flights into a busy area like DC while not increasing the number of folks that are operating? There's so many layers to this thing. And I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty spooked out by it, man. I got to fly tomorrow to Phoenix, and then a couple weeks I go to Newark. Then I go to London. Then I come back, and then I go to Reno. This stuff is scary. But here's the macro. Here's the macro takeaway. I think fear can always be a debilitating factor for any Christian, and I do think it can serve as a distraction when, let me flesh this out, we're afraid of the world out there. It could serve as a distraction to not have to deal with the issues in here and the adjustments I need to make around here. Okay, so planes falling from the sky, crashes, people who are getting hurt, changes in the administration, tariffs, all of these things are happening, and there's scary things. If I'm being honest with you guys, I'm not minimizing these things. I'm not minimizing the realities of all the changes that are happening. But is it possible that all the distractions that we're experiencing, all these things that we're dealing with, is it possible, if we aren't careful and we're critically online, that those are the very things that can keep us distracted from the very simple notion that, as far as for me and my family, this day we will serve the Lord. We choose the Lord. Every day we get up and we get to say, who are we serving? And how are we living? And what are we going afterwards? Right? Like I'm preaching to myself here as well, right? As someone that keeps up with news and media and everything that's going on, there is a lot of uncertainty in the air right now, right? And there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of people that are hurting, and there's a lot of people that are unsure of what's going to happen and where are we going next. So, like, all of that is real and valid. All of that is something that can keep you up at night if you're not careful, if you're chronically online. Now, the flip side to all of this is the world in its natural state is chaotic, right? The world in its natural state is chaotic. We think that we are promised stability and comfort. We think we're entitled to it, especially as Americans. But if you have ever traveled outside of the country, if you're an immigrant, you know that the world is chaotic and it is dark. And these plane crashes are not, they're novel for us, but they're not novel. Tragic stuff happens all the time. Perhaps they're a distraction. Perhaps they are keeping us in a state of fear. Perhaps that fear is debilitating and we then cannot or are inhibited from focusing on the thing that's in front of us. Am I making an effort to wake up and go to the feet of Jesus every single day? I'm not trying to oversimplify this. Like, there's so much to be outraged about. There's so many things to be frustrated by. But if I'm not waking up and seeking Jesus for myself, if I'm not waking up and leaning into God's word, trying to live God's ways, connecting with God's people, doing God's work, then what is the point of living my life in fear? Because ultimately, and I believe this, and this is not me as a Calvinist saying this, but I do believe that God is sovereign and provident over it all. I do believe that God's in control. I do believe that all things work for good for those who are called according to his purpose. And so I would encourage you, don't be gripped with fear to the point where this stuff is consuming you. I would encourage you, go to the feet of Jesus with it. I would encourage you to lean into the things that God may have for you through this process, because we oftentimes get very spooked out. Shout out to Nick. He said, if you ask ChatGPT how many plane crashes there are per year, private, commercial, and military, there are an estimated 150 to 300 global plane crashes. That's all, 150 to 300. I mean, there's 365 in a day, days in a year. So that's at least every other day almost. There's something going on. And so I just don't want to be distracted from the work that I know I'm supposed to do. And again, I'm not talking about a workspace salvation. I'm talking about the practicality of leaning into my faith, walking out with Jesus, going back to the feet of Jesus, doing the basics well. And I want that for you guys. I want that for all of us. Right? So anyway, let me know what you guys think about that. All right? My fear is not for me. Fear is for leave behind. I have faith. I will always worry for my loved ones. Just got here because someone explain what's going on. Let me hit the super chat real quick. Appreciate the super chat. Shout out to Kayal McMillian. He says, what are you doing in Phoenix? I met Cliff and George Janko today at ASU. They're here until Wednesday. Shout out to George and Cliff. I can neither confirm nor deny if I may be with George tomorrow. Okay. Try not to jump ahead and say things that haven't happened yet. But I am going to Phoenix, and all my friends are in Phoenix. So stay tuned, right? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Okay. Bless God Summit, March 27th, 28th, 29th. If you don't know what's going on, go over to blessgodsummit.com. Get your information. We just added the lineup. It's been amazing to come alongside all these different people. We're less than 2 months out, and I can't wait to meet some of you guys. Also, if you're in the Newark area, shout out to my man Modern Day Debates. Apparently, so many people are dropping out of this debate. All right. We got, goodness gracious, Alex O'Connor dropped out because of jihadi extremism. jihadi extremism. That's sad. And I don't know what to do with this. This is craziness. But I'm gonna pull up. I'm probably gonna have to get a little bit of extra security for David Wood when he pulls up to the Blessed God Summit, but I'll be there. All right, and that's gonna be fun. Newark, March 27th, 28th. Sorry, this is February 15th. I can't. Yeah, I'm bummed. I don't know. I'm not gonna call Alex a liar for this and say, oh, he's not. Alex is lying. I don't think so. I think that he probably got some legitimate threats that he felt was credible and decided to drop out. Modern Day Debate is here. James is here. I'm sure he has more insight than I do. Maybe he'll tell me offline. Maybe not. I don't know. But there was already a threat against Apostate Prophet with someone telling him his blood was halal because he's an ex-prophet, ex-Muslim. And now apparently there was a serious threat against Alex O'Connor, who's supposed to be debating David Wood, and he dropped out. This was the statement from James Modern Day Debate. Due to concerns over Islamic extremism potentially threatening the safety of our coming DebateCon 5 conference, Alex O'Connor has decided not to attend. And after careful consideration, I have decided that DebateCon 5 will go as planned. Islamic extremism will not stop this event from happening. We will have armed security on the premises at all times. They will not hesitate to swiftly handle any potential threats. Just this man's savage. Oh, man. Shortly, I will announce David Wood's new opponent. DebateCon 5 is February 15th. I will be there, ladies and gentlemen. I will be there. I cannot wait to get there. Please do not attack Alex over this. James was the one communicating with him over email, and I take him at his word. We are on good terms, and there was no drama in the process. Instead, focusing on Alex, please help us get the word out about the event. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm excited. And I hope whatever's going on in Alex's life that he's good, and I'm bummed that he won't be there. But I get it, man. I get it. Them jihadis is built different, fam. They're built a little different, They're built a little different, and I'm nervous about whatever was said to him. We saw what was said. We saw what was said to Apostate Prophet, but whatever was said to him, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm excited for that event. I haven't got my tickets yet. I'm gonna get my tickets now. Hopefully it hasn't sold out. Yeah. So yeah, February 15th, I will be there. Okay. Oh man, why the VIP sold out? James, I want the VIP, bro. I don't like that. Anyway, yeah, I got to get my tickets for that. Okay, chat. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Again, if you guys don't have your ticket. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be at the Apologetics Canada session with my guy, Wes Huff. This is happening in Canada on the West Coast. If you're not familiar with Apologetics Canada, they've been crushing it with their Trust the Bible series. This is happening March 7th and 8th. So if you're on the West Coast, if you're in Seattle, Northwest, this might be the event to pull up to. You know what I mean? They sold out super fast, but the standard ticket is still available for the religion debate. Okay, I'm gonna get the standard ticket. Or maybe I don't know. I'll get some ticket, man. I gotta get something. First come, first serve, Ruslan. You got to get them early. I know, Jade. L on my part. All right. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I know it's a short stream today. Give me one sec. First come, first serve. I have so many things I want to get into with you guys. I just can't get to all of them today. But we're going to get to some of them tomorrow. The plane crash situation, obviously, is pretty crazy. What do you think of the protests? Which protest? The ones out here in Vista? Which protest are you talking about? How come us dollar has the top of a pyramid? The pyramid has no top. Getting into conspiracies. There's nothing interesting about Mike Signorelli. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you. Man, listen, here's what I will say. And I think I'm going to do a longer video on this. Gosh. I saw protests locally. Yeah, anti-ICE protest. I saw this. Look, here's where I'm at in terms of this situation with the anti-ICE protest. There was some happening here in Vista, believe it or not. I saw them in downtown Vista. I think this entire situation in terms of the ICE response is unfortunately a bit of an overcorrection with the precedent set by the previous administration for bad border policies. Outside of how you feel about Biden or Trump, the catch and release policy, which was I want to say an executive order on Biden's part to catch people in the United States that crossed over illegally and then drop them off in the United States and just give them a ticket and they can come back in 6 months to a year. That was a bad policy because what it did is it incentivized migrants from all over Latin America, South America to come on over. This bad policy then caused an influx of 10 to 20 million people to come and flood our border. 10 to 20 million people that have came over in the last 4 years. Now, here's the tension here. I have no problem with saying there is some good immigration that needs to happen. Obviously, as an immigrant, as a religious refugee, we as a country have always accepted refugees. However, there's been times where we've also stopped the influx of immigration from various parts of the world. So, what we're experiencing, this is my opinion, is an overcorrection if they're now going after non-criminals. If you came over here illegally and you're a criminal, get him out. Get him out. If you've committed crimes, get him out. I think that's a reasonable take. I think everybody can get behind that, right? But if what's happening, and I don't know if this is what's happening, but if what's happening is now they got all the criminals off the street and they want to go in and get children who have been here and families who have been here, maybe for a year, maybe for a decade, I think that's kind of trash. I think that's an overcorrection. I think that we probably shouldn't be going after folks that like are recipients of DACA. Not that they are. I'm saying if that's what's happening, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's a good look. I think there's enough evidence to suggest that folks who come over and stay and work add a net positive. Now, are they also taking away jobs? I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but I think there is an argument to be made that immigration is a good part, is a good thing. So, and especially if you look at all the Old Testament scriptures about welcoming in the alien. Now, we can't welcome in everybody. So there's a tension here that we have to wrestle through. The Bible presupposes borders, yet the Bible also talks about welcoming in people, and America's done well at welcoming in refugees and all that sort of stuff. Now, I think there is a legitimate concern to say, well, wait a minute. Look at what's happening in London. Look at what's happening with Muhammad being the number one name in London for babies. That's crazy. That's crazy. Perhaps we should be intentional about the type of people that come over who are willing to learn the language and assimilate. Right? So we have to sparse this. So if what's happening is that ICE is now pulling up and taking out people who are families, I think that's an overcorrection to bad policies from the last 4 years. I think that's an overcorrection to those bad policies from the last 4 years, right? And I think we need to figure out how to get people that have been here for a while, now I don't know what a while is, to a legal status, green cards, resident cards, I don't know, right? And the people that have committed crimes, they need to go. I think that's fair. And the people who are seeking refugee status need a better process to go through that, because there are Christian refugees that want to come over. And this is where I'm at. Trump cutting these nonprofits, in my opinion, gives us as Christians who value refugees, Christian refugees coming over, this gives us an opportunity to say, okay, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's step up and not let the government fund this. So what have I done? I've increased my giving to organizations that work with refugees. The organization that brought me over, the San Diego IRC, that's who brought me over as a kid. I I signed up as a monthly giver to them to help them do the work, the same work that brought me over, so that they don't have to be dependent on the federal government. I've also given to the World Relief Organization. I'm going to continue giving to the World Relief Organization. What if Christians who valued Christian refugees came over were the ones to fund that work and the federal government didn't have to rely on it? What if we put our money where our mouth is? Right? So I think we've gone to an extreme in the last 4 years that's bad. And I think everyone should be able to say open borders, bad. But I do think there's a time and a place to accept refugees who are seeking legitimate asylum claims and can provide evidence of that. Where that line is, how we navigate that is tricky, right? ICE did find 70 to 80,000 of the 300,000 missing children. A lot more work to be done. Yes. And I know ICE is doing good work. I'm not going to sit here and throw ICE under the bus. I think some of the anti-ICE protesters are detached from reality. It is, you can't expect America to just take in everybody. But is it really pragmatic to expect ICE to kick everybody out? Do we really think that that's the way to go? So that's what I'm saying. It's a complicated issue, but have no gripes that it's, if you're mad right now, be mad at the 4 years that got us here before we got here. Be mad at that. Someone saying, I want to clean up the border situation and I want to get the criminals out. I think we should all say yes and amen to that. And now we got to wrestle with what about the people who've been here? How long have they been here? They've been here a year. Have they been here 10 years? Have they been here 20 years? You know, if you grew up here since you were a baby, and you maybe you're not a DACA recipient, I think it's kind of janky to be like, throw those people out, you know? Someone said if you've been here for 10 years and have 10,000 to 15,000 hours of documented work, you earn citizenship. That's the threshold right now? That's like the official threshold? Anyone concerned with the world starting to equate biblical Christianity with republicanism? Yeah, I think that's a fair concern. I think that's a fair concern. We don't want that, right? But we also can't assume that the government is supposed to do all this. I think the church is supposed to do a lot of this. You know, and me as a private citizen, I think it's fair for people to partner with these organizations that are being defunded. It's unfair for people who came in legally. If you just hand out citizenship to all illegals just because they behave okay and work, lots of legal people. Well, there is a third option, which is like kind of just leave it alone, right? That's in the Between Borders movie suggested as a settlement to the family before they can be granted asylum. The other option was like, we're just going to leave you alone and you don't have a pathway to citizenship, but we're just going to let you be. That is another option. For sure. That is another option. So I hear you on that as someone that did come here legally. I'm not advocating for coming here illegally. I'm saying now that we're here, what do we do with that? And so these protests, to me, I understand where they're coming from, and I can't imagine being in a position where I potentially have to go back. My family could be split up. Like, that's scary stuff. I get it. I think the presupposition of these protests seems to be America kind of has to accept everybody. And that sounds kind of wild. That doesn't sound realistic or sober. That kind of, be a little harsh, sounds like a bit of entitlement. You know what I mean? That has the undergirdings of a bit of entitlement there. And I think that's not good, to say the least, right? I say to start a massive program for refugees, even those who have committed crimes, have their place somewhere and can be saved. Biblically speaking, we should help them, forgive them, find ways. Yeah, there are programs that work with refugees. Again, I named them earlier. World Relief, San Diego IRC, which is who brought me over, and those can be funded privately. You know, upwards of 80 billion gets stifled out of the economy and sent via Western Union back to Mexico alone. That's nearly 100 billion that would be in our economy. Yeah, the question is, would those jobs be done by non-migrants? And I don't know. That's above my head. You know what I mean? That's above my head to be able to give you all the ins and outs of that. I think the extremes of these situations is what concerns me, is anyone that goes to the extreme. Because if you're a Christian, you're going to the extreme of like, get them all out of here. Man, I don't know how you wrestle through all of the verses around caring for the alien and the outsider. if you are a Christian and you're like, yeah, welcome everybody in and take care of everybody. I don't know how you presuppose borders in the order of priorities we see in Scripture. That's what I'm getting at. I think the extremes and the politicizing of the extremes is not good. But the system as it is now, in my opinion, is broken and needs to get fixed. I think in that happening, there's going to be, what is it? You got to crack some eggs. You got to crack some eggs to scramble them, or whatever that phrase is. I think that's what we're going to be dealing with. So it's unfortunate. It sucks. People are going to get hurt. I'm not fond of that. And I think it's just layered, unfortunately, and it sucks. And I know that's not the hot take people want. You want a all or nothing, black or white answer to that. You know, most illegal aliens work in hospitality and construction. These are not job Americans won't do. Most farm workers, which is always the argument, are legal migrant workers. There you go, Vester. Thank you for breaking it down for me. Appreciate you. All right, I got to go, guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you don't have tickets to the Blessed God Summit, go get them. Available now, blessedgodsummit.com. You can get your virtual ticket, and I will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the Muslim artist on the Christian charts tomorrow, and I got a couple other things we're going to look at. Actually, not tomorrow. Probably be Wednesday. Gosh, sorry about that, guys. All right, I'm out of here. Love you guys. Peace. I have a massive update for you. I'm sure by this point, you've heard about the Blessed God Summit happening March 27th, 28th, 29th here in beautiful Carlsbad, California. But we've heard your requests. We've conceded to your demand. There are virtual tickets that are now available for the Blessed God Summit, so you can access it from anywhere in the world, as well as access to the replays. And for those of you guys that are looking for something extra, we're also offering a virtual ticket and an exclusive Blessed God Summit merch bundle. There's some amazing art and some exclusive pieces done by our friend Josh Nadeau from Sword and Pencil that you have to check out. So join us online for the virtual event and experience some sessions from my favorite podcasters, pastors, and performers. We have a stacked lineup. I'm talking about Preston Perry, Dr. Sean McDowell, Inspiring Philosophy. What do you mean? Lila Rose, Alan Parr, and his wife Jen Parr. We even have Nate Sala from Wise Disciple, Gavin Ortland, David Wood, Avery from God Logic Apologetics. And on the pastoral side, we have my friend Daniel Golding, Pastor Ed Newton from CBC in San Antonio, and my personal pastor from Rhythm Church, Pastor Jeff Moores and his wife Erin Moores. You won't want to miss out from amazing performances from America's Got Talent winner Dustin Savella, Billboard charting hip-hop artist John Keith and Miles Minnick, and as seen on Jordan Peterson's We Who Wrestle with God tour, Dirt Poor Robbins. And we're still finalizing a few more speakers. So head over to blessgod.shop, get your virtual ticket now, and you can get yourself a bundle with some of the exclusive merch as well. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.
This journal has been super helpful. Recently, a friend of mine got me this Bless God prayer journal. Lately, I've been really wanting to bring more structure to my devotional life. In the past, what I would do is just kind of like jot down my thoughts and prayers in this shabby notebook. When you open it up and look at the pages, it has praise reports at the top, prayers for other people, my personal prayers for today, a memory verse, I will get this done for today. And then on the other page, it has my time in the Word showed me, and then just another spot for notes. I've really enjoyed using it and feel like I've seen better consistency. I've enjoyed it so much that I thought I'd make a great gift for my wife, and so I got her this one in tan. And now it's just nice to talk about what we've journaled, what our devotional time is like. And so if you're interested in where you can get a copy, just check out the link in the description.